Thanks very much, Matt, and thanks to all the organisers. This has obviously been a very, very successful event. Unfortunately, I've only just got here because I went to the Derby People's Assembly, which is a great sort of insight into the privatisation of our railways and so on. Trains are cancelled and all this other kind of thing. But just to report that in Derby we had a very successful People's Assembly there as well, and that this movement is growing across the country, and it is vitally important because of what we're facing. I've heard Zita and Francesca and some of Jeremy, and I agree with absolutely everything that they said, so I don't want to repeat in my few minutes the points that they made. I think we're all agreed, or I hope we're all agreed, that there are two things really that we need to do to defeat this austerity. We have the most vicious government. We have a government which has absolutely no mandate, and in the 18 months that it still has left before an election, it is determined to do everything it can to destroy the welfare state, the health service, our education system, absolutely everything. And in the process of doing so, to scapegoat and marginalise as many people as they can. Zita's explained that in terms of black people, but it's true across the board. This is what is going on. We have a very big enemy here, and we need to get organised to fight this enemy. It's as simple as that, in my view. That means we need two things. The first is that we need to unite. This has been a big problem. We've had now 5 years of austerity in this country, 5 years of governments attacking us, and we haven't yet, up until recently, we haven't yet had one united movement. The People's Assembly aims to be that one united movement, and I think it has to be something which brings in everybody. And the truth about that is that this isn't about what we disagree about. There are all sorts of things that we disagree about, to do with big questions and small questions, what we prioritise, what happens to analysis, all these different kind of things. The real question here is what we agree about and what we can unite around. And what we can agree about is we don't like this government, we don't want Labour following the same kind of policies, we don't want any austerity, we don't want any cuts, and we're absolutely sick and tired of the poorest people in this society that having to carry the can and being blamed all the time for what is going on. Surely we can unite around those questions. And the second thing that we have to do is to organise. Now, this might sound elementary, but actually when we've had years and years, as we've had in this country, of governments attacking working people, of trade unions getting weaker over many, many years in terms of numbers and so on, of people being defeated, actually people don't think that organising can make any difference. And we have to show that we can organise, and even a small number of people can make a difference. It seems to me, we want big numbers of people, we want lots of people out on the benefit, but even if we have a small protest in Wood Green, even if we have a small protest somewhere down the road, even if a few people campaign over the bedroom tax or whatever it is, that is saying there are people here who are not going to put up with this. That is people saying they do not accept the agenda written by the government, they don't accept the agenda written by the media, which is completely hand in glove with the government, and they are going to fight for some kind of alternative. And I think both of these things are absolutely essential. See, when I say we have a vicious government, it isn't just about what they're doing to our immediate lives, it's also what they're doing to us on a much wider scale. When you have the Prime Minister of Malta, who refers to the Mediterranean Sea as a cemetery, because people are drowning every week because of the hideous immigration laws that we have in Europe. And these are people who, by the way, nearly all of them are escaping from wars. They're people who come from Syria, they're people who come from Eritrea and Somalia, who are desperate to get away from the terrible situation which they find themselves in. There's lots of crocodile tears shed for them on the news all the time, terrible about wars, humanitarian crisis and so on. Nothing is done to concretely help these people. Why don't we say they should all be able to come in to this country? After all, we created a lot of wars in the first place. The biggest single number of refugees in the world are from Afghanistan and Iraq, the countries where we have been involved in major wars over the last 12 years. Now, it seems to me we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to those people. We have created the mess, and they have a right to say that we have some duty to look after them and to protect them. We also have, I think, a basic human duty. But when you see people, I want to have to get in a boat and not know whether you're going to drown or not, and not know whether you'll ever get to the destination that you want to get to, and even if you do get to the destination, to be in the most miserable condition and frightened of being deported and all the other things that people are saying. If I don't want to do it, why should I want anybody else to have to do this? It is an uncivilised and brutal system that allows this kind of thing to happen. And this goes right across the board. I mean, the scapegoating these are the last 2 weeks about Roma people having children with blue eyes and blonde hair who can't possibly be their children. Reminds me of when I was a child, there used to be fairy stories from the 19th century about gypsies stealing children. It doesn't seem to me we've advanced in any sense from that. And for governments to be scapegoating people like this is shameful. It's absolutely shameful. When a school student is deported from France because she's a Roma, and actually there's thousands of students go and demonstrate in her support, that is exactly what we should be doing over these kind of questions. Just when we're looking at this, and when we're looking at what they're doing for the planet and all these other quite big questions that we're talking about as well, is that we had an event last night in central London which was to launch a campaign about the commemoration of the First World War, which is 100 years next year in 2014. Because we didn't want David Cameron and the generals and the BBC, who've lined up all these right-wing historians, to write the narrative of the First World War, which was really unfortunate that so many people died, but it's really rather a good thing. The generals couldn't have done anything different. And after all, they were defending that very humanitarian system called the British Empire. Now, we had a full, there was a church, with a very full hall of people who came to the launch event. And it made me think then, and then coming back from Derby, I was reading in The Guardian, there's lots of poems written by modern poets about the First World War, inspired by poets at the time. And you think about that, you think, 100 years ago, they took the whole of the world, mainly Europe, but it also involved many other parts of the world because of their empires. They took them into a war which led to 750,000 people dead in this country, to more than that in France, and Germany, and Russia, and many other countries. It led to the most terrible misery for people, and we were told that was the war to end all wars. In the 100 years since, we've seen much worse wars. That was the last major war in Europe, which involved mainly military casualties. And after people saw the military casualties, they said, we don't want another war like that. So now they export these wars, or they aim them all at civilians. So now nearly everybody who is killed in war is a civilian. That's a fact, something like 10 or 15% of people killed in wars are people you can call military. Now what kind of barbarism is that? And that was what they wanted us to do all again in August, where David Cameron brought all the MPs back to vote to get us to throw cruise missiles at Syria. That was what that was about. We have to stop the wars. We have to stop the destruction of the planet. We have to stop the basic inhumanity to millions of people around the world caused by racism and immigration laws and all the other things that are going on. I think all of us know that this is a fight that we have to take in both our hands. Personally, I hope there is a Labour government in 18 months' time. I'd like something much better than a Labour government. No offence to Jeremy, who's, I'm sure he's everybody's favourite MP in this room and in many other places as well. I'd like something much better than that, but I do think they will be a marginal improvement on the thing that we have now. But we all know from the last Labour government and our history that we cannot rely on them to do the right thing. We know we cannot rely on them to do the right thing, so we have to organise to do the right thing. Simple as that. And we do that through our trade unions, we do it through our community groups, we do it for all the different organisations, and it seems to me that is what the People's Assembly is all about. And the great thing for me is that we shouldn't be despondent about this. Everybody said 10 years ago when we didn't stop the war in Iraq, we didn't stop the war, and everybody was very upset when we didn't stop the war. But this August, the MPs did what they didn't have the guts to do 10 years ago and voted against the war, and that's because of what we did 10 years ago and over Lebanon and over Libya and all those other things. So the final lesson of this for me is never give up. If you're in the right and if you think there's something worth campaigning for, don't give up. Don't listen to the cynics who say nothing's ever going to change. Things do change, and they change because of the action of ordinary human beings like you and me. That's why they change. That's why the People's Assembly is vital. That's why November the 5th is important. That's why the strikes are important. It's why we have to keep fighting and keep organising until we win.